Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lisa with Undermine Propaganda. It is May 8th, 2026. And I saw a video on X that really caught my attention. It was about the harms of what the use of psychotropic medication can do to people, some people. Psychotropics being antidepressants, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, benzos, those types of things. Now, I'm not speaking from a viewpoint of an expert. I have never been on them myself. I actually, thank God, I never have been on them. I am not a doctor. I do not have a degree. I do have an undergrad in psychology, and I myself struggle with addiction for many, many years and have been fortunate enough to be winning that battle for the past 19. I have known so many people on these types of medications and what they went through being on them, what they went through trying to get off of them, especially being in the recovery community. I will tell you, of course it's anecdotal, but over the past nearly 20 years, the number of people that I have met and known that are on these medications is easily 1 in 3 of the people that I meet. 1 in 3. Now, according to the latest studies, the latest surveys, I should say, as of 2025, 16.6%, a little under 20% of Americans are on these medications. So it's a huge number. And the prescribing of these medications has increased it has actually doubled in the last 10 years. And you're starting all of a sudden to get more and more stories out into mainstream media about the harms that these medications can cause. I mean, you always just hear the benefits. You never hear about all the harms that these medications can cause. It's just one of those things that gets suppressed. And this is controversial, but I'm going to say it, and I'm glad other people are speaking out. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this young woman shares about her experiences, and I believe it's Zoloft, and what she says this medication did to her. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, the woman's name is Laureen Friedman, and she courageously shares very private, personal details of what she's gone through, and it is the medication Zoloft, and it is on C-SPAN, and I believe this was on 3 or 4 days ago. It's gotten 2.9 million views. Okay, May 6th, I'm sorry, this was 2 days ago. It's got 2.9 million views, so there are people relating to this. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this, and then I'll comment afterwards.
Next, I'm going to go to you, Lauren. You're going to talk about another part of, withdrawal is something that people aren't warned about, but there are some effects don't just last during the treatment or when you get off of them, but they can last long after stopping the medication. PSSD, post-sexual SSRI sexual dysfunction, is something many people still have not heard of or are told it's not real. What is PSSD, and what has it been like to be living with this and living within a system that doesn't even fully acknowledge your life experience?
Yeah, so I'm living with a condition called post-SSRI sexual dysfunction. Sexual dysfunction is one of the most common and reliable side effects of SSRIs. In fact, 50 to 70% of all patients taking these will have sexual side effects. What patients are not warned about is that these side effects can be permanent long after you stop the last drug dose. And PSSD is not just low libido, it is a full nervous system injury in which you lose total sexual function neurologically through essentially nervous system damage. So the hallmark symptom of PSSD is genital numbness. Yes, like complete loss of sensation in your genitals. For me, I clearly hate to talk about this, but my clitoris is completely numb as if it's the back of my elbow. I have no sensation internally. I'm 23 years old. Sufferers also lose the ability to orgasm permanently, like for the rest of their lives, and their libido entirely, which for me and what a lot of other people experience is like a sudden onset, like chemical asexuality that just never goes away. And in my opinion, I don't think it's sensational to say that this is a form of chemical castration, that it is permanent. But beyond that, PSSD is not just a loss of sexual function, but a loss, for some people, of emotional function as well. That isn't the case for me. Before this, I was a super emotional, empathetic, loving, caring, like Sylvia Plath reading and resonating girl. And the day I woke up with this injury, I quite literally felt my soul leave my body. Like, I'm so serious. It was the most unbelievable, inorganic thing I've ever experienced, and it's a common symptom of people who have this condition. To this day, it's been years for me. I'm 23 now. I can't feel love for my own mother, which is the hardest thing on earth. I can't feel connection or love for my friends. Or even pleasure music, which was the bane of my existence. I was a songwriter since I was a child. It was my outlet. And it's been completely neurologically severed from these medications. And I just like to say there's a reason that, you know, every song on the radio, every movie on your television, every piece of art since the beginning of humanity centers on sex and love. and not just romantic love, but platonic, familial love. And that is because these are the most central, intoxicating, worthwhile, and fulfilling parts of the human experience. These aren't luxuries. And to remove someone's ability to participate, not just physically through sex, which is completely horrific on its own, but to remove someone's ability to emotionally connect with another human being is a crime against humanity. And I say crime against humanity because there is evidence that Eli Lilly, who created the first SSRI, Prozac, knew their drugs could cause permanent sexual dysfunction and emotional numbness in children especially. And they withheld this from the public because they knew it would be a threat to the bottom line. I mean, I hope I'm not the only one who believes that there's nothing more criminal or dystopian to withhold from patients and parents of patients that you're...
I'm sorry to stop this in the middle of this, but just what she said, the fact that they're hiding the information, because why? Because it'll affect their bottom line, because it'll affect profit. That's why.
Medication can permanently chemically castrate and emotionally numb its user for the rest of their life. PSSD is not on the drug label. It's not even in the fine print. I quite literally had no way of knowing that this was possible or that this could happen to me. The FDA actually received a citizen's petition from sufferers in 2018, begging the risk be added to the label, and it was completely ignored. I took Zoloft in 2022. If this correction was made, I would have had full informed consent. I could have chosen an alternative. I would have been spared from the most inorganic, inhumane suffering I could have never imagined. I mean, we think these parts of us are immutable, and I argue that they are, but when you introduce a chemical agent so perverse, these things that are so central are able to be removed, and it's horrific. But what makes PSSD so torturous is that we've been blindsided, betrayed, and named by the industry that we were told and instructed to trust, and we trusted fully given we took these medications. And now we've been offered no way back to our lives or humanities. I'd like to add, I think it's pretty clear I don't want to be here. I hope it's not surprising that I feel so deeply humiliated and dehumanized to share to a group of strangers in the press and inevitably the internet that I'm sexually defunct and emotionally lobotomized, which is the antithesis of who I was before this. I'm a senior in college at Vanderbilt. I go back in fall. I'd rather my peers not know this about me, but this is what the situation requires. People with PSSD, everyone on the stage, just had to forgo their dignities, their privacy, to be able to fight for recognition so that we might be able to find the help we need to regain our lives and humanities. Had I known that this medication had the capacity to cause permanent loss of sexual and emotional function, I would have sought alternatives. Had I known SSRI'S were prescribed off-label to chemically castrate sex offenders, I would have never taken this medication. Had I known that the leading sexual medicine doctors in the world are finding SSRI'S cause fibrosis of the genitals similar to elderly patients with cardiovascular disease, I would have never taken this medication. But that decision was made for me because of pharmaceutical greed and regulatory failure that has kept the general public in the dark about the truth of these drugs. I am hopeful, though, that this administration might correct what has gone egregiously wrong here. I am grateful that this administration is the first to seriously and thoroughly look into the devastation these medications are causing. But more than anything, I am hopeful that this condition may be recognized, which it has been in many other countries, and funding might be allocated to research what is driving it. Because there is evidence that this may be reversible with intervention, and we as beings, I think we can agree, deserve a road back to our lives. Losing your sexual and emotional function is not trivial. In fact, these things are why we're on Earth, and many young Americans have ended their lives due to the hopelessness of PSSD. Young 20-year-old women and men like myself have ended their lives because I think we can agree life is not worth living when you can't feel it or participate in it. I'm here to represent them and their families and show that these medications are far from benign. People deserve to know the truth. And beyond that, people should not pay with their lives for trusting the medical system wholeheartedly like everyone on the stage did. And that's why I'm here today. And I hope that everyone in the press, everyone in this room can be receptive to what you hear today in this room. You're going to hear a lot of information. I hope you can realize that there are people on the receiving end of the suffering who committed no crime but trusting the instruction that we've all been given, which is to seek help and trust your provider. And I think it's time we challenge that, or at least push back and look into what that entails. So thank you for having me, everyone, and I hope that you're receptive to what you hear today.
My gosh. All huge respect to that young woman. That has got to be so difficult. I can only imagine how difficult that is for her. And here's, one thing I wanted to talk about too is the fact there's, the left and the right here in America. And I don't even like putting labels on myself. That being said, I am definitely on the left. I am a socialist. I want Medicare for all. I want a living wage. I want universal college. I want universal childcare. I want all of those things. What really is annoying is the fact that for whatever reason, when it comes to this issue, the left, a lot of the left that I hear and see and follow, they're so propagandized in this. It's like they don't want to ever even question what the harms may be of these medications. It's just like, it cures depression, they cure anxiety, they fix bipolar. We got to get that person on, we got to get them help, we got to get them on medication. And it's like they have no clue what these studies, the people that have done these studies talk about what these drugs can do to many people. Just as she talks about here. The fact that SSRIs are used to castrate sex offenders. What does that one fact, that one piece of research, I should say, what does that tell you right there? And you have people, no informed consent, none, because people aren't being told, because these drug companies don't want to admit that these things there's a high likelihood that something like this could happen to you. They don't want to tell you that because, like she said in that video, it could affect their bottom line. We go back to the main problem in our society, and this just is just another link to it. Every fucking thing is commodified. Everything. And that includes our health. And you get these pharmaceutical companies, which, by the way, let's see, how much do the pharmaceutical companies lobby Congress? Let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. All right, here we go. We have Open Secrets, which is a great website to go look at as far as lobbying and the money that organizations give to Congress. And in Open Secrets, of course, it's been increasing every single year. And in 2025, it was $457 million that they gave to Congress. And many of the Democrats are donors. They take the money from the pharmaceutical companies just as much as the Republicans do. You can look through this list. Pfizer being on the top, right there. Merck, another one, Eli Lilly. All these companies that produce many of the SSRI'S and other psychotropics, mood stabilizers and such that we are put on here in this society. And it's, again, everything's commodified and everything is put on the individual. If you're depressed, it's your fault. There's something wrong with your brain. It couldn't possibly be the system that you're living in. It couldn't possibly be that you have to work 4 jobs to put food on the table and pay your rent. It couldn't possibly be that you're constantly worried about losing your job. It couldn't possibly be that you can't afford to put gas in your car. It couldn't possibly be any of those things. It has to be on the individual, and then we have to medicate that individual. See, it just all connects. When everything's commodified like that, this is what happens. And I'll go back to the fact that it just drives me freaking insane that so many people on the left aren't on this. And now you got RFK Jr. coming out, and she speaks to this here. The people on the right coming out and starting to talk about this. The problem is sorry, but he doesn't know anything. He knows nothing. And if he comes out and the right-wing administration decides to start ripping people off of these medications, that's going to be a huge problem too, because there are withdrawal symptoms. They don't want to admit that. They never want to admit that. The companies, like she said, the companies don't want to admit stuff like that because it hurts their bottom line. They would have to tell the patient, there's no informed consent. This will fix you. You'll be fine. Take these for the rest of your life. You'll be fine. Go ahead. Then you gain weight. You lose your sexual function. You lose your quality of life. A lot of people develop diabetes. There's an association between developing diabetes and hypertension from these drugs. So the fact of the matter is that the left needs to get on board with this. They need to start questioning and challenging this crap. They do it with everything else, but for some reason, they won't do it with these. Anyway, now that the right's coming out about this, I just hope that they don't start ripping people off of these medications. But I wanted to get that story out there. I've known, like I said, many people who have suffered with these types of things from being on these medications. Like I said, it wasn't just 1 or 2 anecdotal stories. Being in recovery, and anybody out there who is in recovery or ever has been in recovery, you know, and talking to people or people around you or you yourself, that's one of the first things they do when you come into recovery, especially over the past 10 years. You come into recovery, you just automatically take away the heroin, take away the alcohol, take away the cocaine, take away the meth, and then add 8 different prescriptions of antidepressants, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, benzodiazepines, and then you end up on all that stuff. Like I said, it was 1 in 3 over the last 20 years of the hundreds of people that I've come in contact with in the recovery community. Anyway, I know that really just bothered me. I did so much research on this stuff 4 or 5 years ago and read so many books, and then kind of haven't been engaging in the current research on that and all the stuff that's going on with that recently, because I've been looking at the Medicare for all and living wage and all that stuff. I've been engrossed in that stuff. But what I will say is There is a website. It's called Mad in America, and Robert Whitaker started it. He wrote Anatomy of an Epidemic back in 2010, which is a fantastic book that outlines all the studies on all these things with these psychotropic drugs and the increases in depression. Even with increases in these medications, we've had increases in depression. So apparently it's not working. That's not the solution. Anyway, I will put a link in the description to that website for anybody that's interested. It's got personal stories. It's got the latest research. It's got a ton of great information on it for anybody that's ever been on these psychotropic drugs, anybody who has people that are close to them, or anybody that has any questions or concerns or curiosity now that it's being brought into the administration and into places like C-SPAN, and you're starting to hear more and more about people that are struggling with like PSSD, post-SSR sexual dysfunction, which it's also when you're on the drug that you have this too, from the studies I read and from the people that I've known that have dealt with this. All right, guys, sorry, wanted to get through that really fast, but I did want to put that out there. I hope more and more people dig into this and understand what people are going through that are on these medications and what people are going through trying to come off of these medications, and that we need more people educated in how to get people off, and people, not RFK, ripping people off. No, we need actual people, educated experts, empathetic, kind, compassionate people that understand what's going on when you pull people off of these medications. All right, again, I'm all done now. I did want to go ahead and call out the subscribers really quick and say thank you so much. PT033, David Cordero, Susan Chapman, Hank Roos, and Eileen Anithnid. I also there's 5 other subscribers that I don't see your names. I want to thank you so much as well. Thank you everybody who's listening. If you found anything at all valuable, please like, subscribe, share, comment. Let me know what you thought or what you think about this topic. I would be very interested in hearing about that. All right, guys. I hope you guys find some peace in the rest of your day. Thank you so much. Bye.